The restaurant was my mother's choice, which meant it was quiet enough to hear judgments form and expensive enough to feel like gratitude was expected. White tablecloths, a private room, a long rectangular table that placed her at the head without discussion. 30 candles arrived, arranged in a neat circle, like a crown I wasn't sure I was meant to wear. I remember thinking as I took my seat that this was how our family marked time, with proof. Proof you showed up, proof you earned your place, proof you hadn't embarrassed anyone yet. My sister leaned over and said something about how 30 was when things get real. She smiled like it was a joke she'd already told herself. My father folded his napkin carefully, the way he always did when he was preparing to disappear without leaving the room. The first half hour passed smoothly. Wine, a toast from my mother that listed my accomplishments the way you might read a resume aloud, pausing only where something could be framed as her influence. I nodded at the right moments. I'd learned that nodding was cheaper than arguing. When dessert menus arrived, she set hers down with a sound that cut through the low music. "Well," she said, looking at me but speaking to the table, "since this is a milestone, it's time for the truth." The word truth had weight in our house. It was never used gently. "You were never really part of this family," she continued calmly. "We adopted you because it made financial sense at the time. Tax benefits, that's all. I think you deserve to know that now." There was a beat where no one moved. Then my sister laughed, not loud, just a quick, surprised sound, like she'd been given permission to enjoy something she'd already believed. My father didn't look up. His silence wasn't confusion, it was consent. I felt the room tilt, not violently, but enough that I had to put my hand on the table to steady myself. Not because I was shocked, I wasn't, but because hearing it spoken aloud reorganized years of memory in an instant. Every conditional kindness snapped into place. I could have said something then. I could have defended myself, or accused her, or asked why she thought this was acceptable. All the usual shapes of pain lined up, waiting. Instead, I stood. No toast, no shaking, just the simple act of getting to my feet. Chairs shifted. My mother looked irritated, as if I were interrupting a meeting she was running. "I figured tonight might go like this," I said. My voice surprised me by being even. "So I brought something." I reached into my bag and took out an envelope, plain, thick. It made a quiet sound when I placed it on the table, but everyone heard it. "Funny," I added, not smiling. "I have some truth, too." I didn't open the envelope right away. I didn't need to. What mattered was that it existed and that I wasn't scrambling. I had learned, slowly and with help, that dignity often begins with preparation. "I found out a few years ago," I said, "that the adoption paperwork was structured around claiming me as a dependent long after I stopped qualifying, that my consent was never updated, that filings continued after I moved out." My sister's smile faded. My father finally looked at me, really looked, as if checking whether this version of me was legitimate. I didn't say anything then. I went on. I wanted to understand what I was dealing with. I wanted to be sure. I slid one document halfway out of the envelope, not enough to read, enough to know it was official. "I'm not here to argue about love," I said. "I know how it works in this family. I'm here to stop being used as leverage." That was when there was a knock. It wasn't dramatic, just firm, 2 measured taps that didn't ask permission. The door opened, and a woman in a navy blazer stepped in, followed by a man carrying a slim folder. They didn't look at the candles, they didn't look at me, they looked at my mother. "Mrs. Harris," the woman said, professional, neutral, "I'm with tax compliance. This is Mr. Levin from Family Mediation. We have a scheduled meeting regarding an ongoing review." My mother stood so abruptly her chair scraped. "This is a private event," she said. "You can't just—" "We can," the woman replied, evenly, "and we did. We'll keep this brief." No accusations were made, no voices raised, just explanations, clarifications, next steps, the kind of language that doesn't bend to outrage. Because the property filings were under review, my mother was informed she would need to vacate the home temporarily until matters were resolved. It wasn't framed as punishment, it was procedure. The word procedure did more damage than any insult could have. My sister stared at the table. My father opened his mouth, then closed it again. Habit is powerful. My mother looked at me finally with something like disbelief. "You planned this," she said. "Yes," I answered. "I planned to stop this." There was no satisfaction in watching her gather her things, just a strange quiet, like the air after a long argument that never actually happened. When she left, the candles were still burning. No one suggested blowing them out. I put the envelope back into my bag. I didn't need it anymore. The point had been made without spectacle. "I'm going," I said. It wasn't an announcement, it was information. My father